as I do it in my own life, to come home to myself and make decisions that are aligned with my values. The goal is to hopefully set some inventory for you to feel that you can take space and come home to yourself as well. Welcome to The Shift, where we search for ways to do better by thinking better.
Whether you're going through a major life change, looking to deepen your understanding of yourself, or hoping to improve your relationships with others, The Shift is here for you.
We're your hosts, Ayla and Yashar, an endlessly curious sister and brother team.
As certified brain-based executive coaches with backgrounds in medicine and management, we combine the neurosciences, performance psychology, strategic planning methodology, and mindfulness techniques to empower your transformation from the inside out.
Join us in conversation as we explore better ways to show up for ourselves and each other. Welcome back, friends. So the next two episodes are the Ask Us Anything conversations. Today's will be Yashar interviewing me with some questions that you have submitted. I actually haven't seen these questions, so we'll see how it goes. He's picked 5. And next episode, I'll pick 5 of our Ask Us Anything questions and I'll interview him. So make sure you stay tuned and listen to that when it comes out. Part of the purpose of these episodes was to give you a chance to ask us literally anything, whether it comes to professional or personal lives, to not only get to know us a little bit better, but maybe provide some insights that you can apply to your relationships. So without further ado, Yashar, you want to grab the questions that have been submitted and ask me anything?
All right, let's get started. The first question I'm going to ask you is, I've heard people describe the work they do with you as quote unquote spiritual. How does spirituality fit into professional work and relationships?
That's interesting. This topic has come up a lot because my kind of personal practice or my personal work that I do does lean heavily into more intuitive practices that can't help but bleed into MINDSHIFT. And you've said to me many a times, like, put more of yourself in there. And even a friend last night said to me on a call, there needs to be more you in MINDSHIFT. I'm like, MINDSHIFT is me. I'm part of this. We co-created this. But you're right. There is a part of like this more intuitive, and then I guess this listener entitled it as spiritual, is part of my essence, my makeup. And how I talk about it and how I bring it into the work has been a growth edge. I think we've been programmed so much about what professional looks like that part of me needs to unlearn some things that no longer serve us, the systems that no longer serve us, and lean into the parts that do serve us. And part of that for me is how I lean into what would maybe be described as more spiritual or intuitive work when I work. What that means in the most simple basis is that I cultivate and build a deep connection with my personal knowing, my relationship with my inner essence, my inner values, what they mean to me, and how they play out. And when I do that, when I spend so much time cultivating and nourishing that relationship, in turn, it means that then when I see you, I see you. I then can understand and use this knowing to also see parts of you that maybe you have not yet seen yet. So it plays really well into a coaching scenario because I'm betting on your best parts and I'm seeing things that maybe you have yet to see yet. And that does give us both a higher purpose, a higher reason for what we're doing. It instills hope, it instills possibility. It allows us to actually cultivate this growth mindset we talk about. But a lot of it goes beyond kind of the science of it and does lean into some of the intangibles that maybe we can't see, touch, but definitely can feel.
So then the second half of the question was, how does spirituality fit into professional work and relationships? Is there something that you'd like to say to the person who asked this question about that?
Yeah, I think that where it plays in is exactly what I said about myself plays in for them. Like, our work is to give you agency, give you the keys back, give you the tools to drive your car. And part of that means that you have to then get a better understanding and knowing of yourself. Again, we're here to offer the tools, we're here to guide you, we're here to facilitate that journey. But your inner wisdom, your knowing of yourself is literally the secret sauce of anything we do. And so the way that it fits into your personal work, your relationships, your journey in this life is that deep commitment to who you are, what matters to you, what doesn't, setting the boundaries to ensure that you never abandon yourself, that you choose those above comfort sometimes. Sometimes it means you lose people, sometimes it means heartbreak. But what we want to make sure is that you don't break your own heart.
Wonderful. So the second question kind of sounds like it might be on the opposite spectrum, but I'm curious on how you'd answer it. And that is, society praises hard workers. And this person goes on to say that even in report cards from schools, they celebrate, the students for being hard workers. And it seems like from an early age, they instill that harder working is a better quality to have. So the question is, do you consider yourself to be a hard worker? And what does that mean to you?
That's interesting. I think it's a loaded term, hard work, right? It's definitely a societal construct that has to be deconstructed for it to mean something to you. I mean, I kind of see myself as a rebel more than anything. And what that means to me is like, I'll only do things that matter to me or mean something to me. So when they do, yes, I quote unquote work hard at them. But do I work hard for the sake of working hard? No, I don't believe in that. I think part of this deconstructing this question and this equation for yourself is understanding what is success to you, what is legacy, what are you even trying to build, what are your values and what are your purposes. Those are the questions I'm more interested in. And then the second part is, do you want to work on them? Like, now that we know what you want, do you want to work on it? Because even then it's a choice, it's not a given. And so I work at the things that matter to me, and the things that don't and don't add value to my life and the life of the people who I love and the communities I want to build, I don't. And I think that's the way I would approach that question.
And I also know that you spend a lot of time and effort and energy putting, yourself into projects that other people would find monotonous or grueling. Myself being one of those people when it comes to party planning, for example. And to like pick a lighter subject matter and the hours and thinking and creativity that you put in, I would consider that hard work. And you consider that, almost light work. You consider that enjoyment. You consider that freedom. And so when I hear you talk about these things and knowing how much effort you put into life, I think it also depends on what you're doing and what that effort's going towards, which doesn't mean that meaningful projects will always feel light work, will always feel easy. There's always going to be a time where the molasses kicks in and the grind feels like it's very present. But I think what you said about the purpose matters a lot because it can turn what seems to be hard work into enjoyable work and or fulfilling work that
Yeah,
for yourself.
absolutely. I think I put in a lot of resources with time, effort, etc., into the things that matter. I do a lot of work in community care. I do a lot of work in caring for my friendships. I do a lot of work in caring for my family. I put a lot of effort into certain projects that mean a lot to me, light things like a party, because I really like to celebrate my children's birthdays, for example, to bigger, more purposeful work in terms of my personal legacy with like writing the book. So the root of that is not hard work for hard work's sake, right? That's why the reframe was important for me. The root of that is this matters to me and I matter to me. So I'm investing in what matters to me.
Speaking of investing in humans that matter to you, this next question is about your children.
Okay.
And the question is, how do you nurture leadership with your young children?
Interesting. Parenting is an ever evolving journey for me. I kind of learning as I go. Each moment, each minute, each year is teaching me new things about myself, not only them. I think for me, wholeness is kind of the anchor of how I parent because I think that we were never taught wholeness. Most of us growing up and still are never encouraged in our wholeness. So part of nurturing leadership is actually nurturing them to be whole. So that means messy sometimes, confused kids, a 6 year old, 4 year old, whatever they are at that time. And also like showing them what it looks like when we are a team and when we choose the team and how we work as a team. To think it's one or the other is a mistake. I don't want them to be highly individualistic and not consider their greater community and us as a team. But I also don't want their only focus to always be on how to serve others without making sure that they're fed as well. And so I think leadership, as we teach it, is the same way I teach it to my kids. And this wholeness is understanding that balance of hearing your needs, understanding your needs, and also caring for your community. Especially with my older son, he tends to want to take care of us a lot. So part of me teaching him is asking him to take care of himself. When I see him reacting, I say, "Are you feeling overwhelmed? Is this this? Is this that? What can we do about it? How can we, shake this off a little bit? Maybe go take some time for yourself." With my younger son, he's sometimes only thinking about himself. I was like, "Buddy, where's a teammate when I need it?" And so that's leadership for me, being able to balance the two, showing them to see both sides of this equation, how both of them are vital to make this a healthy, thriving relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no one cookie cutter example or answer to what leadership means. Both sides of the coin always have to be looked at. The second to last question for you, Ayla, is you speak passionately about creativity and how it applies to our lives in so many ways. So I guess there's two questions in here. The first question is, have you always considered yourself creative? And the second question is, what advice do you have for someone who would like to be more creative?
I feel like we have to reference our creativity podcast here in the show notes for anyone who wants to kind of deconstruct creativity for one. But in terms of me, have I always considered myself creative? Yes. I can't help but create, is the way I can put it. Like, again, whether it's a birthday cake out of fruit, on the pottery wheel, a blog post, a business, a project, a new idea, it just comes naturally. That's how I thrive. That's how I relate to the world. That's how I instill hope. I was telling a friend that I'm like obsessed with movies that are creative, like about chefs or artists and stuff. And I realize it's because creativity is where I see hope in the world. When I see someone doing things like that, like showing their inner genius, I feed off that. I see what's possible. I love shows watching people in their genius. I love people doing brave things. Like, even if it has nothing to do with me, witnessing that feels empowering, feels like air. And so that's how I see creativity, air. Like, creativity shows me possibility and invites curiosity. And those are probably essential ingredients for me and how I live and how and who I like to be in relationship with. Someone who is curious. I like curious people. I feel expansive when I'm around curious people. And I like possibility. Usually, when I'm in places without that, I feel claustrophobic. I feel restricted. So I lean into what we can create to give me my air back.
Wonderful. And so then what advice would you give to someone who would like to be more creative?
I think the term creative for people who think they're not creative is loaded. Like, I don't paint and it's not about that. So again, I would reference our podcast for that and we'll put in the show notes. But I think what I would say is maybe reframe it. Like, where is your joy? Where is your playfulness? Where is your curiosity? Change the word. Maybe you can take the paintbrush out of your hand and be like, where are you curious? That's creativity. Where are you joy for joy's sake? That's creativity. And that's where you'll find that thing that sparks possibility within you.
Yeah, putting action towards an imagination, putting action towards something you're curious about is, I think, a very tangible way of looking at creativity. And I would agree. I think I'm one that doesn't necessarily relate to the word creativity from a paintbrush or writing a book type of landscape. But when I look at it from, are you curious about something and do you want to put action, behavior, motivation, learning, effort behind that curiosity, then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm super creative because there's so many places and areas and things that I like to lean into. So I think that's a really beautiful reframe because, again, even as somebody who does the work, has written the blog post, knows the neuroscience behind creativity, if I don't take that millisecond to remind myself it's not just about a paintbrush, then I can get trapped in this idea, well, I'm not creative, which speaks a lot to what you said about leadership with your children and even the question about report cards and hard work. We have these ways that are imprinted so early on in our minds about who we are and what we're about, that it's hard to sometimes break out of that. And we do need to take the moment to reframe it. So once again, I love how you said that. I think it adds a lot of context to that question. Speaking of imprints, and and things that we like to uncover, learn about ourselves, evolve through. The last question is, what are you healing or working on within yourself, Ayla?
I mean, what am I not? Is the better question. It's probably
Yeah.
a shorter list. I think the main imprints that I am unlearning are all the forms of self-abandonment, relearning how to not leave myself. It's probably the main one. And then it takes shapes in many forms. I think we learn a lot of things to keep us safe, and they're very important. And at a certain point, you can say, do I need this anymore? And if the answer is no, then it's really important to build a new skill set then. And so I think one of my things maybe was the need to fix everything for everybody. You know, it got me very far. It makes me very good at my job.
Mhm.
And then I also have to learn when it's none of my business to do that. I have to learn when it strips agency from the person I'm dealing with when I do that. I have to learn that it shows a lack of trust when I do that. It builds codependency. It makes the person not be able to build their capacity. So what I'm learning is what is my business and what is not. I'm learning to ensure that I am choosing the things that matter to me and not abandoning them to hold on to something that matters less because I'm scared.
I know that was a very personal question that you answered, but
Yeah.
I venture a guess that 99.9% of people listening to your answer can relate to that in one form or another in their lives as well. Anything else, Ayla, you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
First, I want to thank everyone for submitting their questions. These were really interesting. We'll keep our Ask Us Anything tab open. If you have more questions you want to ask us, personal or professional, we will answer. I think the root of anything I've answered today and anything we do together as a team and as individuals is to empower you to come home to yourself. That is our work. And as I do it in my own life, to come home to myself and make decisions that are aligned with my values, the goal is to hopefully set some inventory for you to feel that you can take space and come home to yourself as well. Thank you for listening, friends. What shifted for you during this episode? We'd love to hear your insights. Write us with any questions, commentary, or episode ideas at theshift@mindshiftleadership.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, we would deeply appreciate a like and subscribe.
The Shift is brought to you by MindShift Leadership, a heart-centered, evidence-based, mindset-powered leadership company, empowering you with the training to prioritize mental health, inclusion, and performance optimization.